And one and two, and away we go. Welcome back to the JunkMan's Garage. I'm the JunkMan, and this is JunkVlogs. Alright, in this series, like I said, I was going to take some questions and answer them on this little podcast. Let's get right to it. First one here is from Primogen Van Atlantis. As an Honda Rebel, just reading them as they're written, as an Honda Rebel CMX 450/88 user, I have the following problems and questions. A. There are nearly none or rare spare parts for my horse. I like that. Is rebuilding, repairing it therefore more unrealistic, or should I stay with similar parts from the Honda CB450? B. What would your recommendations for a cycle that you nearly fix in an instant? No, I like the 450 Rebel. Good job on finding it, because they are, I wouldn't say they're super rare, but they only made them for a couple years. I think 2 years, like 87 and 88. Looks like you got an 88 model. So they have some value there, because then they dropped it down to a 250cc twin engine. Parts are still out there. I mean, obviously eBay's the place for if you need hard, body work and things like that, because you won't be able to get that at the dealer. But nearly anything else for that engine is going to be available in the OEM or some aftermarket stuff. The main things that you're going to have troubles with, like carb kits, spark plugs. I don't think that has points. I think it's CDI by this time. So really, the ignition system's pretty reliable on it anyways. Coils and that stuff, that should all be available pretty easily. So I'm not sure. I mean, that's your first question. I kind of reject that it's, there's nothing out there, because there is. And yeah, you touched on, that engine shares a lot with the earlier CB450, which had points and such. The carburetors, might be a little bit harder to find, say, complete carburetors, say, should you need them, but you really shouldn't. Most of the parts that's going to fail, your needle valve and the seat and everything that wears. The floats should be pretty reliable, but if they're sinking, you should be able to find those. And plus, I have a little trick to fixing those should they have little pinholes in them. And that's in another video. I've already touched on that. I mean, the second question, what would your recommendation for a cycle that can nearly be fixed in an instant? I like that. Fixed in an instant. Like I said, I don't really think you got a bad bike there. It's kind of unique in its own little way. They're popular, but I guess more common would be the 250 version if you want to stick with that same kind of bike. Otherwise, there's the CB650s. Of course, those are 4 cylinders. More carburetors, more complexity. Gets a little more complex to work on yourself, but it can be done. It's not impossible. There's the is it the Nighthawk? That's a 754. It's a good bike. They've made those for years and years and years. It's really common, and easily get parts for those as well. But I'd stick with your Rebel, actually. I wouldn't sell it off for anything else, just because there's no real reason to. Most everything. I mean, like I said, unless you need fenders and things like that, those get a little harder to find, just because it was only made for 2 years, and I'm not sure if the 250 bodywork fits the 450. I think it does. So if it does, heck, you got almost 20 years worth of parts there, or hard parts. So I hope that kind of answers your question. I guess that's what you were asking me. If not, leave a comment in this video and then tell me what else you'd like to know. So let's move on to the next question. Is by a user that's pretty engaged with my channel. I thank you very much for that. German Shepherd. Does the timing chain need to be adjusted if you cannot get the T to top dead center because it releases compression before the mark that you line up with the T for top dead center? By the way, the timing chain feels tight. And how do you adjust the timing chain? My goal is to adjust the valves on my 1986 TTR 225 Yamaha. Yes, I've seen your video on how to adjust valves, but I'm having compression issue. Okay, I understand what you're... Okay, yeah, I could have said that a little bit easier, but I get what your challenge is. Yeah, when you roll it up on that T, especially if you got the spark plug in, it's going to be really hard, and then that compression is going to want to roll the engine over. Take the spark plug out. That means that you'll have no compression, so you can roll the engine a heck of a lot easier and do it in a lot finer increments. However, even then it will want to roll, and why that is because the pressure of the valve spring on the camshaft lobe, as it runs over, it's pressing down, it's wanting to turn the camshaft, and that's what's getting the rolling. And really the only way to kind of combat that is to somewhat, stick a screwdriver, blunt object down the spark plug hole, and you can kind of feel the piston kind of rolling up. Or there is a tool that fits in the spark plug hole, and then you can set it so it stops the piston. It's primarily used for when you want to take the clutch nut off or something like that, or a crankshaft where you need to lock it in there. That tool is out there. It's cheap. You can use that as well. But I think just rolling it up easy with the spark plug out will do it, and you can get it up easy on there. Use your manual, because the specs, like I said, used in my video, are just, that's for a CRF 50 or those little horizontal Honda engines. Other engines are different. They're similar, but not the same. So that I think will solve your problem. Just take the spark plug out, and you should be good there, be able to get it up to top dead center, so both of your valves are closed, and then you can go ahead and adjust the valves per the specs in the manual, like I show in my video. Now, timing chain, I think you're thinking maybe it's slacking, and that could be if your adjuster, which you have to read your manual. Some of them are automatic adjusters. They just have a spring-loaded piston that pushes against the slider that the cam chain is running on, and it holds it taut. So there's no adjustment there, other than the spring can kind of get weak and allow some slack, which then can cause some kind of wonky valve timing. That's easy to replace. It's usually 2 bolts. Pop it out, pop it back in, you're good to go with a new one. Some of them have that same idea, but then right here on top, externally, they'll have a lock nut, and the idea there is that spring, like when you accelerate, it could, push that tensioner that the chain's riding on back here in and cause slop there. So what you're doing is you're releasing that set screw, letting the chain go taut, then tightening it up so it can't push. So the spring isn't doing the pushing, that little set screw is locking it in there. But what that means is as the chain loosens, every once in a while you have to let that up so the spring can go taut again and tighten it up. And you do that with the engine stopped and the engine cold. Generally cold. On that, it probably really doesn't matter. So I think that takes care of everything you were asking me there on that. Like I said, if I didn't cover it well enough, leave me a comment down there, or I'll get to you when I can, and maybe on the next video I'll explain it further if there's more you need to know. Next question actually comes from my website, because I get a lot of comments and questions there. It's from a user named Mitchell. It says, "Hi, I own a 1973 Kawasaki MC1 89cc. Actually, it's a 90, but okay, whatever. It looks exactly like this," and he posts a picture. I won't put it up here. It was given to my dad by my uncle about 21 years ago, and just 2 years ago I dug it out of the shed for the first time in almost 20 years. At first I put some fresh gas in it, and it eventually started up, although it ran really crappy. Then I removed the carburetor and cleaned it out and removed most of the rust out of the tank, but it won't start at all. Now it won't start at all. Okay. I am in the process of trying to restore it, but having a really hard time. Suggestions or opinions? Okay, hey, great. I have one of those bikes, and you posted on my page that's all about that bike, so you found it, and that's good. There's a lot of good information on that page for that specific bike per se, but applies to a lot of different bikes. I'd say your problem is still dirt in the fuel system. 21 years or longer, and you say you have rust in the tank, unless you clean it all up, get it spotless in there, and then tank that old, probably needs to be sealed, just because if it's really that rusty, I mean, I can't see it, so I don't know. I say don't seal it up unless you absolutely have to, but it sounds like you probably do. So, and there's ways to do that. I won't go to that right here. Maybe in a future video I will. I don't know what the condition of your fuel line is. Obviously, carburetor, you said you cleaned it, but how well, and did you completely disassemble it? I mean, in my Getting an Old Bike Running Again video, I show that you have to completely disassemble it. Cleaning the fuel system video is another one you should watch. Because you'll probably need to dip that carb, but you need to be careful with that specific carb. It's because it's got a little plastic, or I think it's made out of Bakelite, which is an early plastic used in the the 60s, late 60s, 70s, and some carburetor cleaners could kind of break that down and not really dissolve it, but soften it, and then you need a new carburetor, because that part is not replaceable in that carburetor. It's your fuel system. That's the problem. And also, you may need, maybe your float's sinking. In that video, Getting an Old Bike Running Again, I got a little tip on how to fix that. You can see that in that video. Probably the gaskets. The gaskets, float well gasket needs to seal, because if you don't, it won't run well. Make sure the pilot jet is got really tiny little orifices in there and passages, so you got to make sure that's spotless. That's why soaking it, so those passages can get opened up without maybe getting that Bakelite part that's in the end that clamps onto the intake. And like I said, cleaning the tank out well. I like to use diesel fuel, maybe put a chain in there and just shake the hell out of it to knock all that rust down. And then run a fuel filter in line, because, like I said, if you don't seal it, or if you don't get a good seal on it, stuff's still going to always migrate down in there, and it's just working against you. So that's the thing. You just, especially with them old tanks, it may take a couple of cleanings to really get them cleaned up. So that's your trouble. That's more than likely your trouble. I could go into, maybe you got air leaks and things, a cylinder base gasket, the rotary valve cover seal is leaking slightly, crank seal. Those are all things that could be an issue as well. But start with the fuel system, because from you're telling me, that's the first place to start. Once you're confident that's super clean and everything, and the carburetor is adjusted right, then you can work on to like air leaks, like crank seals and things like that. And I got videos on how to replace those without splitting the cases, depending on how they're installed. So good luck to you. I'd like to see, keep me updated. Post either on that page, or you can do in this video here. I'd love to see it. Your picture looks like you got a good project there. It doesn't look like it's missing too many things on it. So it's a worthy cause, and looks like the tank's in actually the paint on the tank's in pretty decent shape for you. So if you can, try to save it. So if you got any questions for me, or just want my opinion on something, leave a comment in this video. You can comment anywhere on my website generally. I prefer that you comment on a page, if it's a carburetor question, I got a page for that. If it's ignition, I got a page for that. Let's use a keyword. If you made it to the end of this video and watched everything, put down in there carburetor, or just carb. Let's put carb in the comments below if you made it to the end of this video. Then I know you saw everything. So if this is your first video you stumble onto, please subscribe to the channel. And if you're already subscribed, please like and share this, and I'll make more. And in the future, I hope to get some guests on here, maybe. We'll have to see how this goes, but like I said, I'm having fun doing it. It's kind of fun answering the questions on video, where I can kind of just speak freely, whereas typing, it's kind of hard to get the point across. So, like, rate, and subscribe, and thanks for watching.